Well, greetings, and welcome to Mediocre Minis. Welcome to spooky season, everyone. It's that time of the year when a lot of people absolutely love Halloween and the spooky times and stories and minis. So let's paint some. This mini is one of the zombies from originally Reaper Bones 5. If you're interested in this or in the other ones, I'll have it linked below, but it is just a standard, no-nonsense, run-of-the-mill zombie woman. So let's paint her up and see what we can do with this limited palette with this miniature. So here we are getting started with the miniature. Of course, I'm going to prime it. I know in the previous limited palettes I've done, I have mixed up my own white and black primers together to make a gray. I'm just going to skip out and use something bottled. I know that I have mentioned and used in the past mixing primer together, but I love dark neutral gray as a color, and I'm going with a gray anyways, so I'm just going to cheat and use something already mixed. So I apologize if that upsets you, but I'm going to be a little bit easier on myself. Luckily, Reaper miniatures are relatively easy to prime. If you have a bad brush or an older brush, you can just go wild and really get the primer everywhere and just worry about it pulling up. Now for the skin, I wanted to do or try out something that I haven't really worked with before, and that's simply an undead type of skin. I've seen a few videos, I've seen some concepts, I've looked up on how to do it, so I decided to give it a whirl. What I started with was the basic flesh that I've used in previous models. This is just a mixture of khaki and a little bit of red. It gives a kind of like a Caucasian fleshy color. I should say it's not a regular skin tone, it's a basic Caucasian skin tone. And there I wanted to make it a little bit undead. And what's undead? Well, let's try some blue. And I mixed in a very, very small amount of my blue, and it gave this excellent creepy, grayish, undead skin tone. So that ended up working great. I tried a few other different types of shades. I tried using magenta, red, and a few other colors mixed in, but blue seemed to really be the best for this undead, cold looking skin. Luckily, there actually wasn't that much skin on her. There's two hands, her face, and her feet, which I almost forgot about the feet. Sorry, Tarantino. For this miniature. After that, I moved on to what we can say is most of the clothing. So she's a zombie, so probably not going to be wearing any fancy clothing, especially if you get real close. It looks like there's some decay going on in some of the skin features, so the clothing wouldn't necessarily be as well kept. So what I ended up doing was, and I tried to create a interesting brown color, but what ended up happening was I started off with a mint green. Let's start at the beginning. A mint green. This is about a 50-50 mix of green and white, and it looks very minty. I know that's kind of an odd way to start, but then I started bringing in some orange. And this orange really brought this like dirty, grimy, brownish green. But this turned out fantastic. And this mix of, again, a mint green and then an orange really made this kind of dirty-ish looking green that seemed to work out perfectly, and it ended up working out perfectly for this model. Now, of course, you can add orange to taste if you want something a little bit more, we'll say, towards the brown or orangey or khaki tone. Well, good news. That's kind of what I did for the cloth draped over her shoulders. I know there's a real name for this type of clothing. I just can't think of it. But I just added more orange. And when I got to a area of orange that I liked, then I put that over her shoulders and the top part of the mini. And again, it stands out. It looks old, it looks worn, it looks kind of dirty, and it's perfect. Fun fact, I also used this same mixture for the hair. I really liked it. The hair's going to be disgusting at this point, so let's use that. And I ended up using that for the hair, which we'll get to in a little bit. For the cloth and the hair, that was just a simple wash of sepia. Nothing fancy. I tried to avoid getting any wash on the skin because the skin was already done effectively at that point, and what I wanted shading wise. So a coat of sepia over basically the rest of the model. I didn't worry too much if it pulled up a little bit. I didn't care if I had streaks or watermarks. She's dead. She's ain't doing so well, and her body and clothes and everything's falling apart. So a little bit of splotchiness, a little bit of mess, kind of, I think, makes it a little bit realer, at least in my opinion. And once all of that was dried, then we can simply move on to the highlights. Now the skin, as you can imagine, I started once again off with the base tone of skin that I used before. Again, the khaki and a little bit of red mix. And once that was back to approximately where I started off with, then I just, added more khaki. So I went the other direction, added more khaki, and that brightened it up just enough, but still kept a sickly look. Oh, this is, of course, with the blue already added in, and it just kind of made it a little bit of a highlight. Still sickly, still not good looking, but just a little bit of extra khaki. With the cloth, more specifically, well, all the cloth really, you can only imagine I just reestablished the base tone. This was with the initial mix that I started off with, whether it be the minty green and a little bit of orange, or a lot of bit of orange. That's where I started. Just use the same base tone you already have, and reestablish that, staying out of the recesses, letting that wash, the sepia wash, do its thing in some of the darker areas. And then added a very small amount of white to this mix. Normally I would use off-white to create a highlight tone, but I already had white on my palette, and if I'm being honest, I was a little bit too lazy to shake up and get some of my off-white paint, so I just use regular white. Normally I don't use white too often, but in this instance, it was already on my palette. There was no need to go and take the time to get another paint out. Sometimes using what's on your palette works out the best. And this also applied to the orangey tan that is on her shoulders. I just added more orange to that mix, brightened it up, and then a tiny amount of white also to establish a nice highlight. But of course that leaves us with the base. And the base I've done, which will probably be very similar to most other bases, put the gray that we have from the palette onto the base, let that dry, add in a decent amount of black wash to really show off some of the, cobblestones that are on the base. When the wash was dried, I used some of the gray once again to highlight the edges of the stones. Finally, ended everything off with a black base rim. And there we have it. The first miniature of Spooky Season is complete. This zombie from Reaper Miniatures. Very simple paint job, nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary. What do you think? If anything, I think this was a nice start off to the spooky season of the year. How about you? Do you plan on celebrating spooky season and Halloween any special way? Do you have any spooky minis you're working on? Let me know down below in the comments. I'm curious to see what your plans are for the month of October. Thank you very much again for watching. This is Mediocre Minis, and may the divine light your path.